All right, everybody, we're going to start right on time today. I'm glad everyone can attend. We got a good session, a lot of people here. Thanks for putting those polls up. How many people saw our presentation last year? All right, I'm glad there's not a lot of people because it's pretty similar with some things we've improved upon. So for the people that aren't here or weren't here last year, feedback. I hope to get a lot out of that. So just a few things about who we are. My name is Dave Kahn. I've been working at SUNY Oswego, which is a state school in New York on Lake Ontario for about 13 years. I'm the Mac administrator there, Citrix administrator. I work for the School of Business as well.
I'm Chris Palian. I'm from the Office of Learning at Oswego. I also work half the time with the Campus Technology Services. I have my AMCT and my CISSP and my Certified Ethical Hacker certification.
All right, so basically where we are and what we do. We're a pretty decent sized campus. I'm sure there's a lot bigger and a lot smaller all around, but we have about 110 programs, about 8,000 to 8,500 students.
Can you say the name of the university?
SUNY Oswego. Yep. It's also up on the slide way in the corner. That's in case you want to know how to spell it. So we have a diverse student body as well as faculty. We have about even Mac and Windows in terms of people coming in, and our online programs are ever growing. We have a centralized IT department, but we also have kind of groups in that IT department. And that's kind of going to come into play with why we chose what we chose. We've been seeing the increase in Apple devices growing. You know, last year 3,000, this year we're up to about 3,500. We have 11 Mac labs as well. And really where this presentation goes in is to quickly deploy and get that machine out, not by Chris and I. We want our tier 1 or tier 2 people to quickly basically hit a button or two and get that image out to the faculty and staff.
So the way we used to deploy Mac computers before is Apple would release a new model. We'd get it. We'd install our software on it that we needed. We would take a giant image of that hard drive, put it up on the network. We'd have new computers come in. We'd get that image off the network. We'd put it on to those Macs that we were getting. So this is just a diagram of the way we went through it. So we'd restore the image back to the new computers we were getting, and then Apple would release a new model, and we'd have to go get a new update from the App Store with the new drivers, and then we'd have to do the same thing over and over again, and the entire cycle would just keep repeating, and it was very lengthy. Some of our images were getting to be 35, 40 gigs, and they were taking up a lot of space on the network, and they were constantly being outdated because every time Apple releases a new model, every 3 to 4 months, we'd have to create a new one. So that was creating some confusion with some of the technicians of, okay, you know, will this image work on this particular model? Or they take it off the network, put it on their own local hard drive, and then never get a new one.
We also had consistency problems too, because everyone, you know, at the end of the day, we want streamlined, every faculty member kind of have the same sort of setup as well as our labs. And with what Chris was saying is, you know, you take that image from us and then it gets kind of modified or they change things. So we really wanted a way to isolate that problem.
So our new setup is that a computer comes in, doesn't matter if it's a new model or not. We connect it, we get it out of the box, connect it to the network. We use ARD to stream down packages to it that we want, like Office 2016, other software that we need, printer packages. And then we hand it off to the faculty afterwards. With this way, it's a lot more streamlined. We don't have to get a computer and then wipe it and put a new operating system on it. We're just taking it literally right out of the box and adding what we need to add to it.
So, I mean, and then we're going to touch upon DEP, Profile Manager, what we're using to do that. But again, the idea really is, We want just one button to do something, or a few buttons to do something, and keep things very vanilla. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of presentations during this conference. Monkey is great, Jamf is great. There's a lot of things out there that are great, and this is by no means, this is better or worse. This really scales to our environment, and you're going to hear us say that a lot. This is what we're doing for what we have. So for the hardware we have and we're using is we have 2 very old X servers that I would refuse to throw away, so I still wanted to use them. Because they're awesome, right? Who wants to throw away X servers? But I can't really keep them in my office because they're really loud and it gets hot. So you can turn them into target, easy there.
Sorry.
You could turn it into target mode. So I threw a bunch of drives in there, made them auto go into target mode. They connect using FireWire and Thunderbolt adapters to the Mac Minis. So we have large storage on both of those. Where are you going, bud?
I went back to the last one.
All right. Sorry about that. The idea is the 2 Mac Minis connect to it. There's failover amongst it. Those both have our software that we're going to talk about running on there, which includes the Server.app, running Profile Manager and caching services. So we have uptime, redundancy. It's in our server rack on our campus, so it's protected by APCs and network equities and all of that jazz. And we get to use Apple servers. So the server app, I'm sure we've used that, right, hopefully here. What we're using it for is the update server part. We're using it for Profile Manager and the caching server. Just alone, the software update part is awesome. It saves so much external traffic and increased speed that we were finding before we turned this on that it would, partially because of our network, but it would take forever for updates to happen. New machine comes in, most of the time we have to do some updates, it takes forever. We're pushing out about 990 gigabytes. That little command up there will actually get that information from the server if you decide to want to know how much you have served up for software updates. But it also allows us to manage updates. So now we allow all of our faculty to be administrators of their computers. Does anyone else do that? Are we the only ones? Awesome. So that's great. But at the same time, our network is very precise in terms of if an update comes out, 802.1x, would it break it? So we want to be able to limit the updates that they can do. So we have all of our machines pointed to our update server, and we enable or disable and manage those updates. And this kind of allows them to still have the ability to be admins of the machine, still get updates, but we get to OK those updates. The caching server is great. The only thing that we found with that, because this is part 2, because we did this last year, it's not as cool as it could be because it's really limited by subnets and your networking and your VLANs and all of that. So if you were to put all of your eggs in one basket or apples in one basket and put it on the same subnet, we would be able to leverage caching server a lot more. And that's something that it's really about your environment. For our environment, that will probably never happen, and it's kind of sad. But if you did have everything on the same subnet, the caching server allows those apps that faculty are downloading to easily be downloaded very quickly. Then we use Profile Manager to kind of make everything look great. It takes care of our activation locks, and I'm sure everyone's had many sessions already on all of this, so we'll kind of go over it quick. We use it for iOS devices for activation lock as well as enrollment. We enable DEP, so before now, as we said right out of the box, but even before we take it out of the box, in Profile Manager, everything we've purchased from Apple under 1 or 2, maybe 3 POs is already propagated in DEP automatically. So this is really cool because now, as long as we have a network connection to our servers, it will say, hey, this machine's enrolled in DEP. Do you want to keep going? And we can. So again, we're really trying to automate the system. There are some catches with that, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the slides. So to get a little deeper into this, like I said, we use it for our activation, which is great. It's saved us many times in the past, and it's built right into server. We run all of these wonderful things in our profiles to make sure it works. So we create the profiles, we eventually put it into ARD, and then the technicians can install it. So it's not so much, we're getting different things. It's all custom. They all get to run everything that we've set in stone already ahead of time. App Remote Desktop. Who here is familiar? I hope everyone's familiar with App Remote Desktop, right? All right. So last time I asked you to raise your hands. Ooh, I thought we were getting evacuated. So, real simple, we've been using ARD, or I've been using ARD since it kind of came out. 2005, it was awesome. It's working really well. I'm trying to move my hands like I was told for pictures, so hurry up here. Yay. So we use it for a bunch of things. It's really our glue to everything that works on our campus for Macs. It allows us to do reports and inventory. It allows us to manage and remote in. It allows us to push packages, and it also allows us to do Unix. So again, and I said in the beginning of the presentation, it's not just Chris and I doing this. It's tier 1 support who may not have that Unix background. And they may be Windows users who, terminal scares Windows users for the most part, right? So this allows them to make a GUI. We can make tasks of those Unix commands, and people can just hit a play button and get that Unix command. Very good stuff. Once we started doing this, it's fine. We found that we can install these packages in about under 10 minutes for the whole package building. So it was very cool. Auto PKG, which I hope everyone's familiar with. It's great. Monkeys on top of it. Everyone's really kind of using it. This is a GUI called Auto pkgr. Very nice, very easy to configure. If we have time and the network allows, I'll show how that's easily set up. But you can download it, 3 or 4 clicks, installs Auto PKG for you, and now you can start setting up your recipes to download these packages that we use. So the way this is set up is I have this go check every night around midnight. Is there any of these packages that have been updated? Chrome, Skype, Microsoft 2016. If it is, it sends me an email, and it gets downloaded, and then I get to test it out. So we don't want to put packages out that aren't tested. Like I said, it's very, very cool. Please check that out. So this is actually, and we were going to do a live demo. We still might. But we also videotape it just in case. I'll let Chris kind of take it over with this. I can take this over. So this is Auto PKG.
Sure.
There you go. So, never let someone run your slideshow for you guys. That's a rule. All right. So this is actually one of our Mac Minis in Oswego.
This is actually what pkgr looks like. You have different tabs. There's the recipes there. The repositories are on top. The recipes are on the bottom. It's pretty simple to use. There's the next tab over shows the schedule of when it goes out. You have a bunch of different options there. It's hard to read on the projection screen, though. And you have different folders and files where you can throw your cache, throw your recipes, throw the overrides, and your outputs and stuff.
And what this doesn't show, too, is you now can actually incorporate it into LandRev, Heat, Monkey. You can actually allow it to start talking to those. So if you're using Monkey, that's great. This will help you out as well. So this is kind of a good example and shows what our desktop technicians, our tier 1, see. All right, they see a couple tasks along the left-hand side. Really, we just want them to put the address into the target machine. So that's really the most work they have to do. And they don't even have to be registered on the network. They just get an Ethernet dongle, a USB dongle, and they can just plug that in if they don't want to register it. Of course, they have to have an automated account. This could be put in prior using DEP or our profile. But this is just showing that we're just dragging it over to the set tasks and hitting the play button, and boom, it's set up to do our software update. Now, we could incorporate all of those into just one big task. The problem with that is if something goes wrong or if someone calls us up, something's not working, it's really hard to figure out what went wrong. So we kind of want to modular and break things out. This is just showing the packages, yeah.
So they're very easy to switch out. So last year, Office 2016 came out. So right there, you just saw me deleting 2011 from our project flow and putting in 2016. It was like 6 clicks or something. You just literally hit the minus button on it, hit the add button, find the package, and then it goes into your workflow.
And this is just showing the installation of the package. pretty quick. And like I said, we have about 16 apps we're putting in.
So
Very quick.
it took about 2 minutes and 5 seconds for Office 2016, Acrobat Pro, Flash Player, Chrome, and the other one.
And it's good to
few.
point out, we're doing SSD to SSD. All right, so when you get home and try this, SSD makes things a lot better. This is just showing some of our sudo commands too. So a lot of times, again, back to that whole Unix thing, a lot of our text, they just don't have the Unix background. So rather than just give them cut and paste copy codes and codes they can do, we allow them to do that.
This is the Profile Manager. Here it's just showing different places and different things that you can configure specifically for each of the profiles you create. So you may want to create profiles based on specific groups, based on what the doc they need or different type of setup they need, whether they need certain kind of passwords or whether they need file vault on. There's a ton of different options. Some of the options apply only to OS X and other options apply to iOS and OS X or just iOS. You can set background images for the users when they log in. So there's a picture of one of our clock towers on campus. And all of our lab machines, when you log into them, have a picture of the clock tower that's set through Profile Manager.
And this is just showing how we set up our dock in our labs. So we can actually, we don't have to set up that desktop user GUI. They're going to get the same thing, the same doc through Profile Manager. When they log in, it goes, hey, there's the profile. This is what I get. You have a question? Hold on, I have to give you the box. All right, that's the rule.
Throw it.
All right.
So I was an old school Profile Manager admin and found the or not profile workgroup manager admin, and found that this to be really lacking. Has it improved a lot?
That's a great question, and it has.
Can you reorder the dock now?
Yeah.
Can you put on apps that are that aren't on your system?
So you can reorder the dock in the sense that if you plan ahead and add the icons through Profile Manager in the right order, that's the order that will stay. Now, if you just randomly add things and then go back and add more and take away, they do not get in order. So yes.
Oh, you have to have the app installed on your server.
Yes. Yeah. So
Okay, that's still dumb. Okay.
Well, so the thing to remember too, though, is you want to have it there if you have multiple revisions of the software as well. So to me, that kind of makes a little sense. But it's constantly growing. I mean, to your first part of the question, the latest Profile Manager updates, there's a lot more features. It allows you to doplists and logon hooks, so you could, being the admin, like you said, you probably could write a script after it does order to reorder those through the plist, which we've been playing with.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. Can you throw it to the gentleman over there?
Yeah, just to dovetail on that, as you were saying, if you include the utility docutil in your image or you install it after the fact using Monkey or something like that, you can set the order after the fact.
There you go.
Pretty straightforward.
That's awesome. There you go. Perfect. Docutil. Very cool. You can do it. There's a good throw. That was give it up for him, all right? That was the best throw of the day. Very cool. So, I mean, and we can talk about that. I don't mind having open discussions about this at all. We're using this, but there's definitely some glitches. Profile Manager, for sure. There's some funky stuff, especially we'll start talking about reachable services, which is always fun. But, nothing's perfect.
Your question?
No, just to go back to the docking question there. So the way that I found the Profile Manager works better is if you, let's say you have Photoshop on the dock and you want to get rid of it, you get rid of it, send that profile without Photoshop on it, and then resend it again with whatever you want to replace it with.
Yeah.
So it's an extra step, but it seems to work better.
Right, and that's
because if
kinda-
you just do it automatically,
It gets, yeah,
gets
and it
funky.
doesn't get, exactly.
But if you remove it, you send it clean, and then you resend it again, it seems to work 100%.
I like the DocuTone back as well too. I mean, you'll find ways around it.
Thanks.
For sure. Any other questions as we're going here? So this kind of just shows another example of what we can do with Profile Manager, and not so much what you can do, but what we are doing with Profile Manager with the device lock.
So here, I'm finding a target machine and what group I want it to be in. In the upper right-hand corner, that's the actual test machine that I was sending the profile down to. So you can see in real time of the video the changes that are made to the end client.
So if you notice the
Where's that
dock,
hit go?
right,
So
keep your
it
eye on the dock.
switched. So you see that flash, and the new dock comes up with the settings that I put in from Profile Manager.
And yes, that was not the order that we wanted. All right. So, but for lab machines, you know, the other thing that I'm surprised no one brought out is once you do start enabling the dock, can you change the dock? And you can't. So in the labs, it's great. But when you enable this or did, you get kind of locked into it to change them around. Yeah. I don't want to go hit somebody. We'll try here again.
So again, coming from a workgroup manager sort of move, is there have you found, because I didn't see it, like the once, only, always, is that present yet?
I think so. For which part?
For anything, any profile, like you're talking about, you're putting your clock tower
Oh,
on the background,
Just to do it one time and then change? No.
and then let the user change it.
No. So again, this is where you kind of have to think and scale things out, is for different groups. So that's why we have groups. We have a lab group.
Right.
So for our lab groups and our lab profiles, we don't want them changing that ever, and we don't want them modifying the docs. For faculty and staff, and we should have probably said that, this is more for the lab that we're showing right now. Faculty and staff, very different profile, very much more relaxed. We're really using profiles on faculty machines to set that software update server, as well as inventory, keep track, wipe, you know, kind of MDM, more on that side. So we really like the idea of letting faculty be masters of their own domain, really be the admins that they think they should be.
I got you. Cool. Yeah, no, I really missed that when that went away. So.
Well, yeah, and I think Apple and people are hearing that, and they're trying to get that MX and MCX and everything back into the mix of things. And as you can see, that changed. So we've been kind of doing this throughout this whole presentation, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. So for us, this scales because it's very cheap. You know, 2 Mac Minis, $20 for the server app, and you're off and running. It's pretty great. We can prepare multiple machines at a time. So, you know, in our environment, we have a desk in the back of our help desk, and you can connect, you know, 15, 20 machines. Doesn't really matter. Add 15 or 20 machines. You only saw Chris add 1, but you could just grab a bunch and deploy them. And you're getting those 10-minute speeds that we really like to see, you know, so we can easily push stuff out, get stuff going, and not have inconsistencies, I guess is the right word. Yeah.
Originally, we set up several ARD servers, so that way multiple technicians could be using multiple things at the same time. And we ended up running into problems where some coworkers would end up moving some files or deleting files or changing workflows, and then not everybody was getting the same consistent experience when they moved from one ARD server to another. So we ended up getting rid of I think we had, 3 or 5 different ARD servers, and we went down to 1, where everyone has to remote back into that 1 to use it. So that way, if something does happen, we can fix that 1, and everyone still has the same experience.
Yep. And some of the bad stuff we found was because we have this Mac server, people use screen sharing, or they use ARD to ARDN, right? Kind of like an inception type thing. Sometimes if it's not properly explained, because we do have an imaging calendar, we fight for the use of it. So I can hop on right now and someone might be using it and I need it. Or I wasn't supposed to be using it and someone else is. So that's one of the bad things about this, is that you kind of, if you have a bunch of ARD servers, that's great. You copy everything to a repository and keep it centralized. That'd be a way to solve that. But we found in just having one centralized server is fine, and just coordinating the scheduling of imaging. So like right now, I blocked at a time. I'm at Mac admins. Please no one, if I decide to hop on to show people ARD, to try and knock me off, because that would stink, right? So it's just communication amongst your teams. Some features are, that we showed, you need to be higher than, is anyone running less than Mavericks here? I know I said I wouldn't ask any questions, but I hope everyone's higher than Mavericks now, right? But that's from Apple itself. A lot of the features, you need to be higher than that. So lessons learned, you really got to talk to your network team. With Profile Manager again and Server.app as a whole, you need to have some of these reachable services talking back to Apple, especially with DEP. Things will work fine if they don't, but when you start getting to importing the serials and making automation of these groups that we were talking about, if it's behind a firewall and it can go out and talk, but Apple can't come back in to ping it or whatever it needs to do, things don't work well. And when you call up Apple support and ask them, that's the first thing they're going to say you need to do is open up a firewall port to allow this to happen. So that's something we are in the works of working with our networking team so they can allow us to do it. We found make backups of your config files. And
Time Machine's good. You just want to make sure you have a good copy of your backups. And through the last year, we found a free utility called Bender. It's the icon of it's the Futurama robot, Bender.
So it's cool.
And it allows backing up and restoring of individual services inside the Server app. So say if your Profile Manager database gets corrupted, you can go back to a certain date and just pull out the Profile Manager database, or just the calendar database, or different parts of the Server app from different time frames that you have using the Bender application. So that was a big help at times.
Yeah, and the things we've kind of learned and we're looking for, and you'll see that in the next slide about future steps, is just the documentation and resistance to change is really of our previous, what we're using before. Because now we're really allowing people to just hit a button and go, whereas before they just wanted to connect a computer and wait 3 hours and it's all ready to go. And even though in my mind our way seems a lot easier, a little more straightforward, you can see things, they really were addicted to this master imaging and just 3 hours of imaging each machine. So it took a while for people to loosen up, and we had to give many sessions on showing people how to just relax and do it. So like our next steps, can you hit that again? Is we want to increase automation. So whether that's bringing in another product like Jamf or Monkey to do some other things for us, we may do that. We really want to leverage, again, that one button click for our tech support. I keep saying that because it's almost imperative now, because we hire many people and they might not have the same backgrounds. So we don't want to waste a lot of time trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to improve our data rate speeds. And that's kind of an internal thing. We're replacing our switches and our racks, and that's increasing very well. We're going to replace our Mac Minis and be very daring and put ESXi and vSphere and do some fun stuff with that. And the idea is to have 2 Mac Minis, 2 VMs under that. So if Profile Manager goes down and gets screwy, which it does and has recently did, we can just spin up a snapshot and fix that. And the idea is that we're going to gut out those awesome X servers you saw and put the Mac Minis inside it with Thunderbolt drives. Any questions? None whatsoever. Yes, they're on the box.
The 2 Mac Mini servers that you use, how do you separate what's the breakdown of the services? Do you have like the ARD server on one and then backups on the other? Or?
Yeah, great question. So we actually have all the services They're identical, but services are turned off on one and on the other. So if something were to go wrong, we can just turn those services on the other and then just switch a DNS name, basically. And it's merely for redundancy, not speed or power,
Okay.
because it doesn't really need that much juice to do what it's trying to do at all. When we were testing this out, we actually had an old Mac Mini. I forget what it was, and it's fine. And what we found too is, we can run it on a MacBook, an old MacBook. It doesn't really matter, those packages. It's really storage, how much space you can take up with the software updates, because all those updates do have to download to your server. And it doesn't, you can decide, but if you just choose download all, it downloads everything from 10.4 up, and it's huge. So you kind of got to go through or just have a big storage space.
And that was going to be kind of a follow-up question as far as the space on those updates. Do you kind of preserve the space by limiting which updates that you serve, say to like Mavericks and newer, or Yosemite and newer?
Yeah, we just started doing that. We're actually, and the reason that's why I asked who's running 10.7, we still have some 10.7 machines on our campus. I don't know why, but we do. And we need to provide those. But there's some 10.6 ones that they're gone. There's some, they do include beta versions of OSs too. We don't want those. So we try and keep it as thin as possible, but it's pretty chunky by the end of it.
Are you guys running, are you using laptops with Profile Manager, or is it just desktops in a lab environment?
Do you mean as the end clients? Yeah,
Yeah,
everything, iPads, anything with an Apple sticker, Apple TVs even, we throw into Profile Manager. If it even does nothing at all, we keep it in there just for inventory, just so when our higher-ups ask us, we can just easily export a file.
How many clients are we talking about?
I'm sorry?
Like how many clients, more or less?
How many machines do we have in AR Profile Manager? Yeah, I'd say about 1,800.
Okay.
I think. It varies because we also, one of our counterparts primarily handles the iOS, and that grows, but it also, we take stuff out a lot too because iPad 2s are gone, but they were in there before. But about 1,800, I think, is what we're at.
You made a comment about ESXi. I'm running Mac VMs in ESXi, and it works great. So.
As long
I
as
think
you're
it's a
using,
small club,
yeah.
but-
So as long as they've come a long way, VM actually released a supported hardware list for certain
Right.
Mac Minis and Mac Pros. It's about time. And really, that's what we're looking at. Our server group is really into doing that. So we want to make them happy as well. So we're going to do that. Are you running two network NICs in the back at all, or two Thunderbolt?
Yeah, we just added some, actually we added 10 gig NICs into the back. We're using Cheese Grater
Okay.
Mac Pros, so.
That's cool.
Latest version of the Cheese
Very
Grater
cool.
model. And it works. It does work really well. We haven't had, in the beginning there were some issues, but now lately it's been really good.
Right, and I mean, I hope everyone's understanding, like, there's some products where you write code or you modify config files to get what you wanted to do. With this, you it's almost like Legos, right? You throw some more Mac Minis, change a few things here. It's a lot, in our opinion, easier and to visually wrap our heads around things. At the same time, I love getting into the terminal and tweaking stuff out. So we want things to be easy, which goes back to there's a ton of other great solutions out there, especially at this conference. We look every year, we come here, and every year we're like, we probably should move to Monkey. But the problem with that is that we can't really scale that out to other people in our organization so they would understand it. So when Chris and I are at the Mac Admins conference and something goes wrong, they just won't be able to do it, unfortunately.
Sorry to keep asking questions.
No.
But I had a question about your ARD setup, which is intriguing me because you're saying you're having multiple techs working on kind of a central console, and you're saying they're remoting into it?
Yeah. Let me, let's see if we can try this out here. 'Cause I think I'm still on our VPN. I actually still think I have it opened up.
And
This is a real live demo.
You
wrong.
gotta put it on that one.
Should never have done this whole slide thing you wanted, Chris.
I guess the question I've got is how do you keep your techs from modifying this scenario, or do you?
Well, so you can set roles in ARD. You can put privileged roles.
Right.
So for one, we have backups. So if they do anything wrong, but they're not privileged users, and we actually have parental controls turned on. So they can't do too much of anything. And we export the plist. So you can export the ARD plist file, which has basically all the setups. You also can export the ARD database. I believe someone at this conference wrote a nice utility to do that. But ultimately, they log in under their non-privileged account. We have ARD prompt for a password, because just in case they leave it opened or for some reason it's just a layer of security, they all get this window that you're seeing, and they can run through and do that. If someone were to go in and delete, say, the hide CDS admin account, which it has happened, I can just re-import that. We can either redo a restore for Time Machine, or just use a plist to add it back. And then they feel shame, and we try and shame them as much as possible to never do that again. But it doesn't really happen that often, because there's only 4 or 5 tasks that have more in that, and we're the ones that are adding those packages, they're not. So I mean, with and I'm sorry, I'm trying to see where is
Remove profile.
No, I want to do faculty apps.
There it is.
So these are all of the apps that are going on this one task. If I were to delete something, if I was someone attack, yeah, they could change that. But I easily can go back in and fix it.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And again, they're set really low privileges on the ARD scope, so I don't think they could screw things up too terrible.
Cool.
And they've tried. So.
Of course.
Any other questions?
Box. Who wants a box?
Who wants the box? All right. Well, I appreciate your guys' time. You're getting out a little early. We'll be up here to answer any questions you have. Have a great session.